Welcome in, Everything Guide to Sports Betting here on VSiN, the Sports Betting Network. Great show on tap today. I'm Jonathan Von Tobel alongside with Josh Appelbaum. We have a lot to get to here today because we're going to go around the country, Josh. I think this is a pretty good episode talking about not only the ins and outs of betting in general, but how it varies in terms of the markets now that this has been widespread around our country.
Yeah, JVT, great to be with you once again. We have a really exciting show today on the Everything Guide to Sports Betting. Really, we're going to talk about regional differences and basically how to place a bet. We talk a lot about strategies, philosophies, how to make smart bets, how to identify a sharp play. But we also want to make sure that, bettors know just the basics. How do you place a bet? Where do you go to place a bet? How do you place a bet in person? What do you say when it's your turn when you walk up to the ticket window? How do you place a bet online? And we have two great guests today. We're going to be joined by Jeffrey Benson, Sportsbook Operations Manager at Circa Sports. Great guy, and excited to talk about the new app that Circa has, which I played around with, and it's really, really impressive. Then also we'll be joined by Johnny Avello, DraftKings Sportsbook Director. So we have two great guests and a great show lined up today. JVT, can't wait to do it with you.
Yeah, great part about John, and of course, nothing against Jeff, but John, of course, being a director both here in Las Vegas and in New Jersey, so he can give us a perspective from both markets. So let's start with the beginning, of course, with your prep lesson when it comes to placing a bet and the two options for you: the old school brick and mortar, and of course, the newfangled digital thing that is this thing that I keep with me all the time, which is my cell phone.
Yeah, so basically we're in a new renaissance of sports betting. Really, ever since PASPA was repealed in 2018, the Supreme Court decision. You're seeing more and more states legalize sports betting, which is just a great thing for sports bettors across the country. But you basically have two ways to bet, two ways to place a bet. The old school way was the illegal way, going through a bookie. But nowadays you have two options. You can go in person. Basically, you're walking up in person the old school way at a physical sports book, usually located inside a casino. You can also place a bet online via mobile, which we'll get to with Jeffrey and Johnny later in the show here today. But kind of starting with the in-person way, because it's really, really fun. And if you've never been to a sports book, it can be a little intimidating. If you're a brand new bettor, you walk in, it's kind of crazy. It's like a carnival. It's really busy. It's loud. You got all these bright lights. You have these amazing TVs, wall to wall, scoreboards everywhere, LED lights lighting up with different numbers and different odds. And what does it all mean? Today we're going to teach you what it all means, and you really need to know just kind of the basics overall. So, I'm on the East Coast. It's great going out to Vegas and JVT. I'm jealous with so many options you have, but we're starting to get more in the Northeast. So, I love going down to the Borgata in New Jersey, and there's so many different sports books you can go to. We also have Rhode Island legalized, New Hampshire legalized. But basically, kind of the first thing you do when you're ready to go to a sports book is it's very simple. These are just some tips you always got to remember. The first thing you want to do, find a seat. It seems kind of trivial, but this is kind of really important because, depending on the day, if it's an NFL Sunday, it can really, really, fill up fast. And if you don't have a seat, you're kind of behind an 8 ball. So find a seat. And basically that's your workstation. That's your spot where you're going to post up. If you brought a tablet, you have your cell phone or your smartphone where you can look things up, but basically consider it your workstation. That's the place where you're going to post up all day. It's where you're going to gather your thoughts. You're going to devise a game plan, and basically you're going to select your bets from there. And it's kind of a go-to place where you can lean on kind of your place of solitude and solace. Also, you want to make sure you're posted up in a good spot where you have access to the TVs, because you want to be able to watch the games you bet on later. But kind of once you're at a physical sports book, then what you want to do is basically pieces of paper that the sportsbook.
One of my favorite things when it comes to in all the stations that Josh was mentioning, like for me, I have like a list of books that I've really enjoyed, and I'm sure Josh being out there will know that a couple of the Jersey spots that I'm about to list off, like Ocean. If you've watched VSiN, we know that Lombardi and I did the show out there. Ocean's a great spot. He mentioned the Borgata. I'm also a big fan of the Golden Nugget out in Atlantic City. It is one of the cooler setups that I've been. There's literally a TV covering every single inch of the wall. And then, of course, you go out here in Vegas, and it's almost every single book out here that you love. The Westgate. Red Rock is awesome out here once everything goes to normal. We could make a list, Josh, of like all of the books that I love going to, just in terms of the atmosphere, the venue. And there's certain books that offer just actual, like the Red Rock, for example, why I like it so much. You actually have a desk, private TVs, things of that nature that you can get to. First come, first serve every single time, though, right? It is the Everything Guide to Sports Betting here on VSiN, the Sports Betting Network. So, Josh, you were talking about setting yourself up when you get to a lot of these books, right?
Exactly. These are kind of just basic things to remember. Remember, find a spot, post up. That's going to be your workstation for the day. The next thing you want to do is look for the betting sheets. You're kind of hitting on that earlier, but basically they're going to be printed out. They're going to be usually located at the front of the sports book, usually by the by the cashier, also known as the ticket window. But grab a bunch of sheets. They're going to be printed out. They're going to tell you all the information you need to know, basically listing all the offerings that sports book has for that day. So it'll tell you all the games, the start times. It also give you the game numbers, the ID numbers, which are really, really important when it's actually your turn to walk up to the window and place a bet. But grab them all, anything you're interested in, and basically what you're going to do, make sure they also have these little like when you're playing mini golf or playing golf, these little pencils you want to grab. And what you want to do is grab the sheets, go back to your workstation, and then start writing in the margins, start circling games that you're interested in, make notes in the margins, and kind of just get yourself prepped overall. And then the key there is once you're ready to actually place a bet, now it's time to get down. So basically what you want to do is, get in line, find the shortest line, have your cash ready to go. You'd be surprised how many new bettors say, I brought my credit card or my debit card or here's a check. Nope. You want to have cash. Cash is really the only way that they're going to accept any money. And then once you're up and it's your turn, you don't want to be quote unquote that guy. You want to be efficient. You want to be smart. You want to know what to say because number one, you don't want to sound like you're a novice. And number two, more importantly, you don't want anything to get lost in translation when you tell someone a bet. So when you walk up to the counter, have a smile on your face. A good attitude never hurts. Say hello to the ticket writer, but also make sure you tell them the bet amount that you're betting, the ID number of the game. It's a 3-digit number next to each team in each game, and also the bet type. So if it's a college basketball Saturday and you want to bet $50 on the Clemson Tigers at -7, you don't want to just say $50 on Clemson or $50 on Tigers. The guy behind the window or girl behind the window, they don't know if you're talking about LSU, Memphis. They also don't know, the spread that you're talking about or the bet type. So you want to basically say with the money in hand when you give it to them, the amount, so $50 on 137 spread. That 137 number, that's just the ID number. It could be game 425, 125, whatever it may be. But you're basically telling them the bet amount, the ID of the game number so that nothing gets lost in translation, and then also the bet type. Again, limiting confusion, want to be efficient, hand the ticket writer your money. And then this is really, really key. Once they hand you that ticket, your receipt, your bet slip, you don't want to immediately walk away. Spend another 5 seconds to look at the ticket that they wrote for you. Make sure it's correct because if there's anything wrong, you can immediately give it back to them and have it fixed. But once you walk away from the window, boom, all bets are final. You can't come back 10 minutes later and said, oh, I meant money line, but you put spread. So you got to make sure that it's correct. And then the key is don't lose the ticket. Hold on to the ticket. Put it in your wallet. Make sure you have access to it. Once the game's over, hopefully you won. You just come back to that same window that you were at before. You'll hand them your ticket. They'll scan it. You'll get your money and your payout. And here's another thing. Tip the ticket writer. It's a good thing to do. To me, it creates some good karma. Maybe you'll avoid a bad beat because you're nice and you tip the ticket writer. But also remember that if you leave town, if you got to leave early, if you're in Vegas and you got to take the next flight out, or you're in the East Coast and you got to go back home, you don't have to stay there and mail and give in the ticket in person. You can always flip it over. There'll be an address on the side. You could mail it in. Then the book will give you your winnings overall. But again, these are just some tips. I think the key here is just remembering that once you're up to the window and it's your time to place a bet, know what to say. Tell the ticket writer the bet amount, the ID number of the game, and the bet type, and then good luck to you. Hopefully you win.
One of my favorite memories that I have, so it was like right out of high school, and I used to work at Red Rock out here in Las Vegas, and it was during the Oklahoma City Miami Heat NBA Finals during the shortened year, and I was still getting into sports betting, and I walk up, and it was kind of dead, so I was that guy because I didn't know what was going on. It was after game one, Oklahoma City had won, so they were up 1-0 in the series, and I tell the guy, I want to bet on under to win the series. Here's $30. And the guy goes, well, it's -300, so you're only going to win $10. And I looked at it and I'm like, yeah, I'll be back. I don't think I want to make that bet. But it's right. But it's, it's a learning process and it's a lot of fun once you actually get into it. But, everybody I think has been that guy at one point or the other. But now I'm old now. So it's like 12 years later. I hate that guy. So don't be that guy. Get your rotation numbers in order.
Yeah, you're exactly right, JVT. And I think it's important to remember, everyone will make mistakes, but once you get more experience, you're going to learn to love a sports book. It's a bettor's paradise, betting on games, hanging out with other bettors. It's so much fun. Just kind of get that experience down, get your vernacular down, and then it's going to be an even better experience overall.
Let's head out to the phone line. Circa Sports, Jeff Benson is nice enough to give us a couple of minutes. Jeff, thanks for the time, man. I hope you're. Yeah, I kind of wanted to do this. So actually, let's talk about the Circa app for a second because you guys did something. I thought it was a little bit. We'll call it ingenuity when it comes out here in the market in Nevada. So walk the Circa app because now that if you have an active account at Circa, you can fund your account right from your home.
Yeah, that's correct. Obviously, the state of Nevada has not yet approved remote registration, but presuming that you're already a Circa Sports guest and we have all your information on file, you can remotely fund and withdraw as long as you're in the state of Nevada. So if you sign up through the app with the Play Plus functionality, you're more than welcome to obviously deposit via PayPal, e-check, or debit or credit. And then when it comes to withdrawing, you'll get a debit card, which you can withdraw your money to that way. And then if you wanted to transfer money to your bank account, you're more than welcome to do that as well. So it just provides a nice convenience to the customer, especially given what's going on right now.
I'm curious because you kind of alluded to one of my favorite things about going to New Jersey was the second you crossed over state lines, you could sign up, throw up the email, put your card in, your information, whatever it is, and you're good to go. What do you think it is in terms of why is it taking so long? Why is it going to be available anytime in the future? And why do you think there's been this hesitancy to do it out here in Nevada?
It just, from what I've heard, it seems like everybody, in terms of all of the casino operators, would need to get on board for remote registration to become a possibility. Obviously, given that Nevada was one of the first places to offer legal sports betting, it seems like maybe some of their sports betting laws are falling behind some of the other jurisdictions. So for us, when we look to expand, Circa Sports in general, we're looking obviously at states and jurisdictions that have favorable sports betting laws and that really work for the consumer in terms of remote registration.
Hey, Jeff, this is Josh Appelbaum. It's great to have you on the show today. And I just want to do a quick shout out to you guys. No one's making me say this, but I signed up for your app and I got a great email from you, personalized email. And I want to tell you that really meant a lot. I think, what's important with legalization is that we're seeing so many new sports books open up. There's so much more opportunity. There's also more competition. And it really means a lot to me, books that I feel like are doing it the right way. They really value their members. They want to have their members have a good experience overall using their service. So I want to give you a shout out. I want to recommend anyone listening download the Circa app because it's a fantastic app. But Jeff, I wanted to ask you, you kind of talk about, and I think Circa, I've heard great things before, and my experience has been great. You guys talk about doing sports betting the way it should be. What does that mean to you? And can you just talk about kind of your what kind of book you want to create, and what does it mean to do sports betting the way it should be?
Yeah, I mean, for us, our management team and our executives, we kind of have, a way we see that a sports book should be run. For us, that kind of means that we focus a lot on transparency, whether that's limit sheets in the sheet rack, providing our guests fair limits and pricing models. We're not gouging them on splits, things of that nature, and just providing them with the level of respect they deserve. I think a lot of times in this industry, or any industry, to be quite honest, you may walk in and you may not get the service that you deserve or the respect that you should. A lot of times, especially with some of these sharper gamblers, they walk into, a sports book and they're maybe looked at as kind of like a criminal, that they're walking in, they're looking to, pick off bad lines, things like that. But for us, and I think our director, Matt Metcalf, has done a really good job of kind of trying to cultivate this in terms of the relationship between the bookmaker and the bettor. And I think a lot of times people look at it as an adversarial relationship where you're in competition versus one another. But for us, we don't really look at it that way. We're providing a service for these guys. And we certainly want to put things up on our menu that has respectable limits that makes it worth their time. So for us, we just focus a lot on the customer service aspect of things. When people walk in, they're going to get friendly ticket writers who are, willing to help them. They're going to have access to our line supervisors should they have further questions. And then if they obviously want to talk to either myself or anyone on our management team or our director and have questions about, extending their limits, getting other things put up on the board, things of that nature, that is certainly the service that we're going to provide to our guests, because that's the way we believe an operation should be run. So, and then from a back of house kind of risk perspective, we're certainly, trying to take sizable limits, get people down on their wagers. That's what when we opened our doors, that was the goal. We wanted to write business. So for us, we're looking at more of a low hold, or a high volume, low hold model. And that's kind of how we see fit and the best way to run our operation.
I think that's a great point, Jeff. And one thing that really stuck out to me is the fact that you guys welcome sharp action, because, if you go on #gambling Twitter or just in gambling circles, I think, a common thing is that some books kick out sharp bettors. They don't want to take in their action. This has been a very controversial topic across the board. So it always dawned on me that if you were a sports book, you would want the sharps to come in, because they're going to give you insight. They're going to let you know where the sharp side is, where the liability is, and are they going to make some money? Yeah, but in the long run, they're going to give you more insight into where the sharp side is, so you can use that to your advantage. So I think it's a great point. My other follow-up, just Jeff with you, and again, we're here with Jeffrey Benson. I would like to ask, I hear a lot of you guys, what I like about you is you're really creative. So if you have people asking you to set lines, boom, you'll go in the back room and you'll set some lines. So, the NFL Offensive Rookie of the Year, I saw you tweet out, have those odds overall. But can you just talk about, during this weird hiatus with coronavirus, a lot of sports are down. There's not a lot to bet on. But what are you guys offering? And also, how do you kind of take in suggestions to create lines?
Yeah, for us, obviously, we're one of the few shops that have continued to operate in the lieu of the COVID-19 situation. Our mobile app, even though our counters are closed, our mobile app is running 24/7. Our director, Matt Metcalf, and our sportsbook manager, Chris Bennett, those are the guys in the back who set a lot of our odds and make quite a bit of our numbers. And they've done a tremendous job continuing to put up markets and things that we think will write action. So for the last month, whether that's been, an expansive NFL draft menu, we were one of the first in the state to put up eNASCAR. Matt's kind of cut his teeth and worked his way up in the industry betting on NASCAR. So to kind of, we've, really put quite a bit of work into that, whether it's matchups, groups, yes, nos, odds to win, things of that nature. We've really focused on the Cactus Tour and the Outlaw Tour. They continue to play golf right now in Arizona, and that's actually really been popular with our players. So for us, we're just trying to, put up things that we think are going to generate action. Obviously, given, what's going on, there's not a ton of sports, but whether it's, trying to put up Korean baseball, a lot of esports, things like that, I think you've really seen the market, especially the gaming control board, approve a lot of this stuff that maybe they were reticent to before this happened. And I think it's really just given us a chance to shine and put up things and give our customers at least something to bet on until these major sports ramp back up.
Hey, Jeff, before we get you out of here, we got 2 minutes left. Part of what you guys have been doing, you kind of alluded to it, right, is putting up stuff that we haven't regularly seen out here in this market, the two-way futures, getting first in with the esports, things of that nature. With people who are watching right now, what's the process for you guys like involving gaming and talking about all the new things that you guys want to add to your boards, either in the past or in the future?
Yeah, obviously, gaming comes out with a list of approved events. And then if there's things that aren't on that list, you would put together a submittal process in which you have the official rules from the league sanctioning body. And basically, you're just putting together a plan of how you're going to book it, what stipulations you're going to offer. and things of that nature, just so that you give gaming as much clarity as possible. We were there's obviously some things that we would like to offer wagers on, but that the gaming control board hasn't approved. I think one of those things obviously that a lot of people would like to bet on here one day in the future would be the election, and I think that would generate a massive handle. But like I said, obviously you're kind of at the mercy of the gaming control board. But it's been really, really great working with them and having a relationship with them here in the last month, as they've approved Counter-Strike and Call of Duty and League of Legends and Overwatch and a lot of these other things, especially eNASCAR. Has really been positive, and in lieu of what's going on with our counters being closed and not many major sports operating, it's really helped keep us in business and have something for our guests to wager on until these major sports like baseball and basketball and NHL make a decision on what they're going to do in the summer.
Jeff Benson, Sportsbook Operations Manager over at Circa. Jeff, always good to talk to you, man. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Jeff.
Thanks for having me on, guys.
Got it. Again, Jeff Benson over at Circa. I'm also very upset because when I signed up for the Circa app, I also got a personalized email, and I thought Jeff just liked me, but it turns out I guess they do that for everybody. What are you
That's true,
do?
JVT.
Thought I was a star, but it turns out I'm just another guy. All right, we'll come back here on the Everything Guide to Sports Betting. We have plenty to get to, building up your bankroll. We're also going to be joined by Johnny Avello, the contrast between this operation, of course, out in Nevada, and what it's like out on the East Coast, all that and more here on TEGS. It is the Everything Guide to Sports Betting. I'm Jonathan Von Tobel, Josh Appelbaum alongside as well. It is that time. We do it every single day here at the 25-minute mark. The Bankroll Builder. Talk about how managing your bankroll, shopping for the best line, and building that bankroll up. The optimal way to do it here on the Everything Guide to Sports Betting. All right, Josh, you have the floor. When it comes to basic bankroll management, how do you handle it?
Yeah, so I think there's two ways to go about it, but in general, you really kind of want to keep the same concept overall. So bankroll management, you think in a way, okay, if I just win a lot of my bets, that's great because I'm going to make money and I don't really have to think about it. But it's very, very critical long term to becoming a successful sports bettor. So obviously, you want to make the smartest bet that you can long term. But a big part of that, especially an episode like today, is talking about the fact that there are dozens and dozens, hundreds of different sports books, brick and mortar shops, places you can walk in and bet in person with legalization sweeping the country, but also, online mobile apps are getting really, really popular overall. I think a lot of the numbers you're looking at, like we'll talk to Johnny later, but out of Jersey, mobile is accounting for, 85% of the action at some of these sports books. So as a result, you want to be aware of the fact that, in a way in the past, it was a lot harder shopping for the best line, but today it's kind of never been easier, but it takes a little bit of time and effort. So what is shopping for the best line? It's also known as line shopping. And our guy, Patrick Maher, kind of coined the phrase, having multiple outs, which I think is really, really important. But overall, what does that mean? It means that you got to recognize the fact that with so many different sports books, they're not all the same. They're not all created equally. Some books would be considered more of sharp books. They cater to more professional bettors. They're market setters. They kind of set their own lines and they have high limits and they attract a lot of professional action. Now, on the other hand, you have what you would call a lot of square books or square books in general. They cater more to recreational bettors. They have lower limits. They don't really set their own lines. They kind of wait for the big market setting books to open, and then they'll shade it a little bit. And they shade it toward the popular side. So favorites, overs. And as a result, you want to be able to have access to all these different books listed above. So reduced juice, where they're offering minus 105 juice instead of standard, minus 110. All these little things are important because when you're getting down and you want to place a bet, you want to do your research and place your bet at the book that gives you the best number overall. So, you want to have ideally 3, 5, 10 different sports books that you can search from. And also, you got to remember the fact that, and I've gone through this a little bit, if you have some square end books, they could start shading your numbers once you start winning. And not even if you're winning, but if you're just consistently betting what would be considered the sharp side. When you're not logged into the website, a line might say -7, but once you log in, it says -7.5. So be conscious of the fact that, shading does occur, and different sports books have different odds, and the key is just trying to get the best number. And again, it can be kind of a pain to open up a new account. You got to put in a bunch of information, but you really want to bite the bullet early, because then it gives you so many options later on to get better numbers. So have access to multiple sports books. That way you can shop for the best line. It's really, really critical no matter where you live. And again, having the best number is half the battle, especially when you're trying to beat the closing line and trying to be a consistent long-term winning sports bettor.
Yeah, when you're shopping for those lines too, and there's having the apps helps you out in terms of firing on those lines and being able to take advantage of them. But if you're just shopping around, if you're looking for different numbers, there's websites, right, like Vegas Insider, like an LVA Sports. It's similar to Dime Best, where it shows you line moves, where the numbers are at multiple books as well. So it helps you to shop for the numbers. And to your point too, Josh, when it comes to having the app at your hands, when it comes to bankroll management as well, right? Like, when you have an app that is loaded, or multiple apps that are loaded, it is tempting to keep going and firing away and everything. And you got to be diligent, but you also have to make sure that you're practicing some sort of resistance when it comes to, hey, I can bet all this if I want to. Have all your numbers, make sure that you have your advantages, and play your games. I talked about it yesterday when I started out with the NBA betting. At first, I was a little too timid, and I got a little bit more aggressive. That doesn't mean I'm firing out my entire app every single night on NBA games.
Yeah, I think that's a great point, JBT, because in a way, the convenience of everything nowadays can be kind of a gift and a curse. The fact that you have, open up your iPhone or your Droid or whatever you have, and you look, okay, I have 5 different sportsbook apps, and I can just bang, 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 hit as many bets as I want. You want to be careful, because the name of the game in sports betting is always trying to be disciplined. The more bets that you make, again, if you're a sharp bettor and you have an edge on kind of a volume bettor making a lot of bets, then all the power to you. Fire away if you have an actionable edge. But if you're a new bettor and you kind of get inundated with this convenience of just with your thumb, you can bet, 10 games in a row, that can be, it can be a little scary and a little dangerous, because the more bets that you make, if you don't have a good edge, you're just letting the juice chip away at your winnings.
All right, John Avell is going to join us in about 15 minutes. We'll get the Jersey side of things. When we return, though, of course, we are not done. We'll talk a little bit about that regional bias. There's some great examples of different numbers for different games in different regions. None more so than that Oregon-Auburn game at the beginning of last year. We'll tell you all about it when we return here on the Everything Guide to Sports Betting. Welcome back in, VSiN, the Sports Betting Network. Make sure you check out Quick Picks. It introduces a new betting game featuring all-time greats from the NFL. If you're looking for action during the shutdown, how a Quick Picks virtual matches superstars from then and now using historical stats to determine winners. Who was better in their prime, Aaron or Peyton, Julio or DeAndre, Zeke or AP? With Quick Picks virtual, you can find out. It takes less than a minute to create your ticket. Spend as little as 10 cents, win as much as $50,000. And for a limited time, VSiN customers get this special offer. Get a $1 match up to $100 when you sign up for a new Quick Picks account. Go to quickpicks.com/VSiN bonus. Do it now. Offer's going to expire soon. Must be at least 21 and a resident where Quick Picks is offered. That's quickpicks.com/VSiN bonus. Start playing Quick Picks virtual right now. It is the Everything Guide to Sports Betting here on VSiN. I'm Jonathan Von Tobel, filling in for Patrick Maher, Josh Appelbaum alongside as well. All right, Josh, so as this has expanded across the country, you have started to see a little bit of regional bias. And when Passport was first struck down and everything, VSiN started, of course, the Betting Across America show. So they flew me out to Atlantic City every weekend during the football season. You saw a little bit of it over at the William Hill Book Station, right? Like Philadelphia 76ers in certain matchups, you'd pay like a little bit more on the money line, or they'd be a half point shaded if they were a favorite, things of that nature. It wasn't anything too extreme, but you have seen in certain jurisdictions, there is some extreme cases when it comes to either single games, futures, things like that. The Oregon market comes to mind. I brought up the Oregon-Auburn game at the beginning of last year, where the line was actually flipped Auburn was the 3-point favorite in that matchup, but up in Oregon was the 3-point favorite. Biloxi, where all the liability was on the New Orleans Saints because they got so much action there. LSU as well. So you're starting to see this pan out because of the different regions. There is some regional bias in the numbers.
Yeah, JBT, what this boils down to, I think, is just being conscious of the fact that where you are located in the United States of America, you're going to see a possible shaded number toward the popular teams that are located in that region. So this is something you really want to be aware of and conscious of, because you can kind of utilize it to your advantage. So, we talk about the fact that with legalized betting, kind of spreading across the country like wildfire here, you have 21 legal states. You have more than 15 states that are operational. And again, what this is going to do is it's going to provide different numbers at different locations overall. So, great example is the Patriots. I go to Twin River in Rhode Island. It's a great sports book. I actually went there for the Super Bowl with my girlfriend, and it was great. And we had a great time overall. But you got to remember that where you're located can have an effect on how the odds makers shade the line. Because if you're located in New England, you know that 9 out of 10, 99.9% of bettors are going to bet the Patriots. Why? Because the Patriots are the favorite team. They're the favorite team of the region. So as a result, it kind of makes sense. The odds makers, they're going to say, okay, we're located in New England. The Patriots are the most beloved team overall. Everyone else opens the line of Patriots -7. Let's open it up at 7.5. Why? Because we know that everyone who lives in this region will be, psychologically biased toward betting the Patriots no matter what the number is. So what are they going to do? They're going to shade that line toward that popular side. So why is this important? It's important because you want to be conscious of the fact that you might be betting into bad numbers if you're playing a lot of these hometown teams located where these sports books are. If you flip it to the other side, this actually creates a good opportunity to kind of go contrarian, bet against the public. And again, when you're going contrarian, it's not just betting against, average Joes who lose more often than they win. It's not just placing yourself on the side of the house. It's also about getting better numbers, shaded numbers, inflated numbers, getting, an extra half point or a point because a team is being overvalued by the vast majority of bettors. So, by going the other way in this example, you're based in New England, you go to Twin River, you go up to New Hampshire, DraftKings, and maybe that line is shaded a half point. Boom, by betting against your favorite team, you could get an extra half point, and then the Patriots win by 7. You cash because you got the hook. So again, these regional biases were never really a thing prior to PASPA being overturned and legalization spreading. But now you're really starting to see wherever the region is, it's going to be shaded, and it could be the same number. It might be 7 everywhere, but the juice might be, -7, -110 across the country, but it's -7, -120 at your legalized New England states. So again, be conscious of these situations, and oftentimes you're going to actually get better numbers by betting against those hometown teams located in your region. JBT.
Yeah, and also, by the way, too, Vegas is not free of that for the most part ever since the Vegas Golden Knights have come around, right? Vegas Golden Knights games, you might pay a little bit more, 15 cents or so on the money line, because they're so popular out here, obviously, because this is the region in which they're located. The Lakers, right? This is a Lakers town out here in Las Vegas. There's always maybe on those primetime late-night games a little bit more liability than usual on a Lakers game or in the futures book. We talked about that with the Lakers, mainly because how popular they are. Like going into this season, Caesars had the Lakers as the favorite to win the whole thing going into the year, Josh. A lot of places actually have the Lakers ahead of the Clippers. But if you talk to people who actually made odds and whatnot, a lot of people had the Clippers power rated over Los Angeles Lakers, but the odds you can't put that up because, of course, the bias out here in Las Vegas. So it plays out everywhere, and Las Vegas is not free of something like that.
Yeah, and I think you can't really, hate on the sports books for doing this because it makes a lot of sense, and it's kind of just a smart way to do it. But as long as you're conscious of this, then you can kind of use it to your advantage. JBT, I wanted to ask you as well. I don't live in Las Vegas. I wish I did, but can you talk a little bit about how the Gaming Commission and the Control Board, they can have effect on basically what bets are available to you in Nevada? Because I remember I was doing the Lombardi line with Patrick Maher and Michael Lombardi, and we're talking about the length of the national anthem or what color will the Gatorade be, and a lot of these kind of weird props were not available in Nevada because the government wouldn't allow it to be posted, whereas a lot of these mobile books did have these odds. So can you just talk about the fact that a lot of these props, why aren't they available, and why is that important to know what's on the menu and what isn't?
Yeah, the issues out there, the issues with stuff like that is, of course, you want a distinct outcome. And how many times you hear every single year when it comes to props like that, because those are a good example. When I can't remember which singer it is, says Brave twice at the end of the national anthem. when 2 Gatorade cans are dumped on coolers or dumped on the coach, but both are different colors. How do you differentiate which color was which and which one cashes? So usually the issues are there is you want a distinct outcome. You want something that is measurable, something in a box score, and that's why those types of things aren't offered out here. And that's why it seems like out in Jersey, and it's starting to become a little bit more lax out here. I think it was Jimmy Vaccaro. The year when LeBron was going to make his decision, you couldn't put up a prop. Where will LeBron play? So I think he put up something along the lines of which team will LeBron score his first basket for? And that's something distinct that can be found in a box score. It's a little bit of a loophole. Now, those things have kind of loosened up. In this offseason, you had odds on which team Tom Brady would play for this coming year. And, the Westgate's odds shifted and moved. William Hill had him as well. So you're starting to see that loosen up in terms of what's offered here, Josh. It's because of the shaking landscape and what everything is offered on the East Coast. But it has been a little bit more strict and stringent out here. But books like Circa, Westgate, William Hill, they're starting to offer more. And I think gaming is starting to come around to what the landscape and what the climate of this landscape is.
Yeah, I think it's a great point, JVT. And again, it's also based on the fact that you want to be conscious of these things. You want to know these going into it. You'd hate to identify a smart bet and then find out your book doesn't offer it. One last tip before we go to break here, just be conscious of the fact, again, that with different books at different states, a lot of times books will offer a sign-up bonus or a refer a friend bonus. So just make sure you can take advantage of some of these promotions.
John Novello joins us next year on the Everything Guide to Sports Betting. Now's the time to become a VSiN Plus subscriber because it's free. You won't have to decide what you want to do, pay or cancel until at least one of the major sports return. Go to VSiN.com/subscribe to sign up. All right, it's the Everything Guide to Sports Betting here on VSiN, the Sports Betting Network. John Novello, director for DraftKings, nice enough to give us a couple of minutes here. John, thank you for the time. I wanted to start with this because, of course, as people know, you have your experience out here in Las Vegas and now working with DraftKings. What's been the biggest difference from you shifting to, operating out here in Las Vegas and Southern Nevada to operating a book that is mostly out on the East Coast where jurisdictions are a little bit different?
Well, they are different. When you operate in Nevada, you operate under one state's bylaws, and you know the way they operate, and you know how to navigate and get a hold of them if you want to try something new. When you're doing it in 10, 12 different states, then you have to be careful. Not all states are created equal, and some will be doing some things that others don't want any part of. So you need to be really careful on your offerings.
John, I'm curious, because it seemed like, especially when DraftKings, was first starting to get here in the States, it seemed like what you guys were able to offer, it was a little bit more lax in terms of what was available for bettors than out here in Nevada. And the guidelines have seemed to loosen up a little bit. But what is the difference in terms of the process, right? You have to go through gaming and get approval out in Nevada. What's the difference for a state like New Jersey, for example, when they're going over things that you can put up for bettors?
It's the same process. You go to them, you tell them, initially you give them your sports rules. And we have a lot of offerings on those sports rules. I mean, many more than Nevada does. We're doing sports that they don't want any part of, like right now, like ping pong and darts and things of that nature. But you have all of those in your rules. And if you want to do anything different than what's in your rules, you go to them and tell them what you want to do, why you want to do it, and how the game's played and results are configured, and you do get approval or you don't get approval. So it kind of works the same way. I would say your approval process is a little quicker. I can tell you in Jersey, we've gotten things approved in less than 24 hours.
Hi, Johnny. This is Josh Appelbaum. Thanks so much for joining us today on the Everything Guide to Sports Betting. First off, congratulations on going public. That's awesome for your company. And I was able to hang out with Jason Robbins at a Harvard Business School interview. So that is awesome for you guys. But I just wanted to ask you some basic stuff for our listeners. Obviously, everyone knows how you guys have a huge presence in New Jersey, but what states are you operational in right now? What's the protocol for signing up? Any fine print that bettors should know about? And then also, any preview into maybe new states that you're looking to expand into?
Yeah, right now we are in different on the digital side than the point of sale side. Now, the point of sale, of course, is retail, they call it, where you walk up to the counter and make a wager. Those places where we are retail only are Mississippi and New York. I hate to say that, New York, because New York really should be digital. They're losing out big by not, because all the New Yorkers are crossing over to the Jersey side. Where we are digital and retail both, that would be West Virginia, New Jersey, Pennsylvania, New Hampshire, Indiana, Iowa, and in Colorado to come on board in just a few more days. Really looking forward to that state coming up. So, and I like Colorado's structure. It's remote It's remote, just like everyone else signups, where you don't have to go into a location. You can do it as long as you're within the boundaries of the state. You can fund it that way, and that's the way most of our digital products are. And guys, that's how you expand business. I know Nevada, you have to walk into the place to do it, and hopefully Nevada will change those rules down the road quickly, before not too far down the road, because I just think it just takes away from your business. Some people want to play on the digital side, but they just don't want to have to go into a place to do it and fund it.
Again, we're joined by Johnny Avello, Sportsbook Director at DraftKings. Johnny, I just wanted to ask you, how are things going now with obviously a lull in sports betting as we all just anxiously await sports to return? Anything you've learned about bettors, maybe sports that you didn't think would be very popular but bettors are flocking to? How have things been going, and any insights based on where your bettors are placing their action in a weird point in time right now?
Well, Josh, when you lose the NCAA tournament, which is probably the biggest betting proposition for the whole year, when you lose that, and then the NBA and the NHL playoffs, and then the Masters, and then everything else leading up to that and after that, you take a pretty big hit. So you got to get a little creative, and we did. We started off doing more soccer. We were doing the Australian rules football and anything else out there we could find, but then some of that dried up. Then we moved to darts, which we're still doing, esports, which has really caught on, especially not only on the sports side, but on the DFS side, the daily fantasy, table tennis, which is one of our biggest offerings right now. We do it pre-match and in-game, and we're doing Chinese Taipei baseball and basketball. And so we've had to find new offerings for our customers. Now, what's been surprising to me was the table tennis. The way the table tennis is caught on, that's been probably 70% of the action that we were writing. Now, of course, we've added some more things as of late. The Cactus Tour is now on board for golf, and some of these basketball offerings from China. Some of that's starting to help. But table tennis at one time was our main offering. So what I've learned is that customers can get used to any type of content and will wager on it. Now, what I also learned is that when we get back to normal business and offering the core sports, we found some other offerings that we're going to continue to offer because we find that they're popular.
Johnny Avello with us. Hey, John, I'm curious, when you offer new things like that, what's the process like for you guys, or do you have a table tennis expert on board?
I don't know, JVT, if we have a table tennis expert, but we have people that can adapt to it rather quickly. I mean, when you're an odds maker, if you throw something at me, I can give you the odds in a relatively quick time. I just have to do a little bit of research, and it's no different for any other sport. You have to do a little bit of research. You have to get to know the players. You put up the prices, and you make adjustments.
So do you, I would say, do you look at other markets, European markets, which offer it really extensively? And how much do you take from them in terms of influence for your numbers?
There's not a whole lot to look at when it comes to table tennis. So you have to be a market maker in a lot of these markets. So, not a whole lot to look at.
John Avella, sportsbook director over at DraftKings. So I think one of the things that's kind of interesting, John, when you look at the difference from Nevada to out the East Coast and the other markets, is you see a really big European influence when it comes to like the straddles and the numbers for a lot of the books out there on the East Coast. What has that been like in terms of the European model being more prevalent on the East Coast than, of course, to what we're seeing out here in Nevada?
Yeah, the European model was just a little bit wider on the spread, especially the money lines, and that's all been tightened up. And, the Americans are used to a certain – well, I shouldn't say the Americans, because Nevada was the only place you could bet sports. And, the bookmakers all know in Nevada that you need to keep your lines tight. You need to give the players a fair shake. Need to be competitive. And when the Europeans first came on board to the U.S., I think they thought differently, that you could be more spread out, and they've learned that you can't. You need to be competitive, and to be a bookmaker, you want to give the players a fair shot. So as you look at some of the lines around now, you'll notice that difference over the past year or so.
Yep. John Avella, again, sportsbook director over at DraftKings. John, it's always good to hear from you, sir. Stay happy, stay healthy, and we'll talk to you soon, okay?
Thanks, John.
Same to you guys and the listeners. Thanks for having me on, guys. Bye.
Yep, you got it. Again, Johnny Avella over at DraftKings. All right, it's that time, Josh. Last 2 minutes. What do we got? What did we learn today?
Yeah, so what did we learn on today's episode? We really focused on how to place a bet. So knowing that, with legalization, your options are increasing, but really it comes down to finding a sports book. So this could be either walking up to a physical sports book, usually located inside a casino. You always think of Las Vegas or New Jersey or so many different states being legalized, but also placing a bet via online or mobile through a legal sports book like DraftKings or Circa Sports. Also talked about the fact that, when it's your time up and you walk into a sports book, you want to be able to know the terminology and the important things to say. So you don't want to be quote unquote that guy. So when you walk up and it's your turn, after you found a seat, after you've got some betting sheets and made some notes, circled some games you want to bet on, make sure you have cash in hand. Make sure you know the bet amount, the ID number of the game, the bet type. Make sure to hang on to your ticket, and hopefully you cash it at the back end, and make sure you tip your ticket writer. I've also talked to Jeff Benson of Circa Sports, doing some fantastic stuff. Highly recommend that you download that Circa Sports app. Bankroll Management, we talked about the fact that because there are so many different sports books across the board, whether it's brick and mortar, whether it's land-based, whether it's online, they have different tendencies. Some are considered sharper, some are square, some offer reduced juice, some do not. So you just want to make sure that you're placing your bet, you're doing your homework, you're shopping around, having multiple outs, placing your bet at the book that gives you the best number. And then we also talked to John Avella at DraftKings. DraftKings really expanding, doing some great stuff overall. Very popular sports book for a lot of bettors across the country. And what really stuck out to me is the fact that DraftKings, like many other books, they have to adapt. And they've really done a good job of adapting it. And if I told you a month ago or 2 months ago something to bet on, you probably would have thought I was crazy, but that just goes to show you that bettors are thirsty for action. And again, you want to make the smartest bet that you can, but also knowing what's available to you in terms of bets, different sports books, that's really, really key long term.
Everything Guide to Sports Betting here on VSiN, the Sports Betting Network. Josh, always good to be with you. I will be back next week. Patrick back in the same spot tomorrow. Everything archived up at VSiN.com. And speaking of, VSiN.com/subscribe. VSiN Plus subscriptions free until a major sport returns. We'll see you.